Okay, everybody, we're going live in about 30 seconds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Euronews here from the heart of Brussels. We're here for a very special event, a unique event, celebrating our special Euronews series, The Food Detectives. If you love food, you're going to adore the next hour and a half of conversation in which we're talking with conversations, demonstrations, debates about how to keep Europe's food safe, traceable, transparent, and of course, tasty. Now, Euronews is actually a partner in the EU's Watson Research Project, and we're here to celebrate the research within that project. Tonight, we're talking about fish, we're talking about meat, cheese, wine, beer, honey, and olive oil. We're talking about blockchain, we're talking about connected devices, DNA testing, QR codes, and ultra-smart Internet of Things systems. My name is Jeremy Wilks. I'm a science reporter for Euronews, and this year I've had the pleasure of making the Food Detective series with my colleague Davide Lobina, who's in the crowd with some of the real-life food detectives. Over to you, Davide.
Hello, Jeremy. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm here with the stars of the Food Detectives. I'm here with Stelios. Hi, Stelios.
Hello.
So, Stelios, you've been testing for the very first time. We've been extracting DNA from olive oil out of a lab for the very first time. Was it exciting?
It was a wow factor, you know, it's do it outside of the lab, accelerates results, accelerate testing, everything. It's a new door.
And I felt that you were quite emotional in there. Why is that? Why so emotional?
Well, years of work, see, you know, the results coming real, it's strong.
Okay, and then we have Dagmar. She works for the pilot project within the meat sector, and her work is all about accuracy. Why is accuracy so important, Dagmar?
It's especially important because intentional alterations with food is falling under the criminal law and will be prosecuted as such. Nobody wants to accuse somebody wrongfully or be accused wrongfully, so you have to have the possibility to prove that.
Okay, and another great detective is researcher Truls here with me from Norway. Truls, you track fish from the high sea, from boats in the high sea to the fish factory. Why is it such a detective job, your research?
It's a really long supply chain, so you have to collect data from so many different sources and put them together into a coherent package where you can understand that the fish has been caught legally and has been reported correctly on the quotas, and it has been transported in a good way in the correct freezing temperatures, so that it's a good fish product that's safe to eat and really tasty as well for the consumer.
And we're going to see how these devices, the Watson project, develop later on with the demonstration. Now it's back to you, Jeremy.
Thanks very much, Davide. Yes, look forward to those demonstrations. And to further whet your appetite, I'm joined by Dimitrios Argyropoulos, who's the Watson project coordinator. What is the goal that you were aiming for? What was the project you were what was the problem you were aiming to overcome with this project?
Hello, Jeremy. Warm welcome, everyone. You're very welcome to our event today. I would say Watson is a very complex project because we are solving a very complex problem in the food industry, which is food fraud. Watson is a consortium of 47 partner organizations across Europe. We need this number of people actually, to tackle this problem. And in Watson, we develop a holistic approach to tackle food fraud through a framework for authenticity and traceability.
We've got lots of things like DNA testing, for example. We've got things like connected secateurs being used in vineyards, all kinds of different technologies. Do you think they can really change the quality of food at the end of the day? Can we really make a difference?
I'm pretty certain by the end of the project, we will be able to deliver mature technologies to provide safer food in Europe.
Yeah,
indeed.
what's interesting about some of these technologies is they're kind of deployable now, right? They're sort of ready. Some of them are still being researched, and some of them are things you could put out into the field tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, Watson is a research innovation action. Of course, we are aiming to achieve a tier level of 6 or 7. Some technologies are more mature. Some of them can be seen in the near future in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's very, very exciting. So we're now going to move on to our first panel discussion. For those people who are here at this event in Brussels, there's going to be a tasting session later on with some of the products from the Watson partners. If you're watching at home, I hope you've got something nice to snack on when you're watching this conversation. We're going to be talking about what Europe is doing to beat food fraud, boost traceability and transparency. I'd like to welcome up on stage our two guests, very knowledgeable experts from the European Commission. Come on up. Rosalinda Scalia and Koen van Dijk. So Rosalinda is the Deputy Head of Unit, please take a seat, Deputy Head of Unit for Bioeconomy and Food Systems at the European Commission's Directorate General for Research, known as DG RTD. Very lengthy job titles over there. And Koen van Dijk is the Head of Unit for Food Hygiene, Feed and Fraud in the Health and Food Safety Directorate General, which everyone tends to call DG Sante, right? There we go. Around here, it's DG RTD, DG Research, and DG Sante. So thanks very much for being with us. Linda, before you came here to Brussels, you were actually a food safety and food fraud inspector in Italy. Let's get straight to it. What was the worst case you ever saw?
Thank you for this question, Jeremy, and I'm very happy to be here. Yes, I was a detective myself, so it's kind of coming back to the origin. And one of the worst fraud that we detected was about a wine that was declared as a denominated product or, from a certain origin of Italy. And then, thanks to our sampling, it was seen that it was not made from grapes from that region, thanks to the isotopic bank. So from one side, we were taking samples to feed in this bank that was growing, and on the other side, we were also taking advantage of the bank itself to check certain types of wines. So we had to seize all the product of the lot. We had to downgrade it. The company had to downgrade it to a normal wine. And at the time in Italy, now I don't know if it's the same, but the company had also to pay and to send out a news report for all consumers to reach as many consumers as possible for informing about this downgrade.
That's interesting, yeah. And so they were doing that for profit, right? It was just about earning more money, yeah. Koen, can I just come to you? You're a trained vet, in fact, before you came to the European Commission. What would you say would be the worst cases that you saw in your career when you were starting out?
Okay. I'm still a vet.
Still a vet, yeah.
Still a vet. So my main work was in veterinary public health. So of course we had quite a good insight on food safety. But one of the things I have noticed that it's very important to protect the food supply chain from fraudulent activities. And I've seen small cases, I've seen big cases. And one of the cases where I was involved was the dioxin crisis. It's a long time ago, it was 1999. But this was linked to the use of contaminated fat, which ended up in animal feed, with, of course, contamination of meat and eggs. So those meat and eggs had to be withdrawn because there was a serious health risk. So actions were taken, exports were blocked. So all over this was, of course, a huge case. To give some data, at the time we had to slaughter 7 million chickens, 50,000 pork had to be slaughtered and discarded. Of course, there was also export bans from our trading partners because they were very excited. But I think for every crisis, what is important is that we learn about it. And so at the time of this crisis, we reviewed our food, let's say, protocols. We also amended the legislation. And all of this, I think, is the most important, that we can, using this, hopefully not too many crises, but at least to enforce the safeguard of the public health, but also the food, let's say, the integrity of our food chain.
And was there kind of criminal intention, like in Linda's case, with that one?
It was linked to the fact that somebody was fraudulent mixing machinery oil with food-grade oil.
Wow.
And then ended up in the animal feed, so with the consequences what we know now.
What would you define as the kind of headline goals of the European Commission now when it comes to food safety, traceability, transparency and trust?
I think the fighting fraud and also enhancing traceability is at the heart of our, let's say, the Commission program. It's important to mention perhaps that the EU legislation is harmonized, so it means that we have legislation which is applicable throughout Europe, the same legislation. But it's also that within the legislation already we have clearly embedded the prevention of fraud. So it's already legally that prevention of fraud, adulteration of food, also practices which can, let's say, misinform consumers. So, but one of the things, the main goal, of course, when we have is food safety, of course. So when we have a case of fraud, when it comes in, we are on a report of a fraud case. The first thing that we do is look at this case, is there an immediate public health risk?
Right.
So if there's a risk identified, we immediately upgrade this information to a rapid alert system. So it means that it's information to the member states so that they can, let's say, trace those products and withdraw them from the market. A second goal is, of course, competitiveness. And we have seen that in fraud...
You hear a lot about competitiveness, not just in food,
yeah,
here in Brussels.
I think it's amazing to see how, let's say, food frauds can really impact on trust. And not only on the whole market, but also for those who have this rippling effect on food businesses which follow all the rules and obligations. So it's very important. We have seen it in the past that we, let's say, to build this trust takes a long way, but lose the trust goes very quickly.
For sure, it can happen just, I guess, in a week or so, right?
I give you an example, Jeremy. It's not linked to fraud, but just an example. Back in 2013, we had the E. coli crisis, and at the time we were looking at the source of the E. coli, and then it was a wrong assumption, but it was said, and exactly at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was said it was cucumber. And literally overnight, the whole trade in cucumbers collapsed. Yeah. Overnight. So you can imagine. So that's why it's only, let's say, and this is also for linked to fraud, that's important that if we have data, we have to be accurate. That
you have a huge responsibility too.
Exact. So that we can really, let's say, we're accurate in our findings, that we are solid in our findings, and then, of course, keeping the trust and market integrity during these controls.
Linda, food has obviously been a focus in research programs in the past from the European Commission. What can we expect for the future moving forward? What are going to be the priorities as you move into the next funding round?
Yes, first of all, I need to say that a lot has been done for food safety under Horizon 2020 and then also currently under Horizon Europe. Yeah. We have invested a lot of energy, and this event of today is also the demonstration that these projects are really making the difference in the ground. But since food safety is the basis of our food systems, we cannot stop it. I mean, it will take our help. The EU research can take different forms, maybe. We are going to publish the last framework work program for Horizon Europe very, very soon. And maybe another angle that we want to explore is the data and artificial intelligence to be used also to detect fraud or to improve the efficiency of the whole value chain in general. So we have done a lot. Food safety remains a priority, and now I cannot share what concretely we are going to do with the next framework program because it's a bit still far from us. But
are there particular kind of trends or buzzwords that you start to hear more about?
The trend and the buzzwords are linked with competitiveness. The agri-food sector employs currently almost 5 million people in the EU, and for around 3,000 3,000 companies, of which most of them are small and medium enterprises. So innovation is a big buzzword because we need to put all this knowledge that we have acquired thanks to projects like Watson or Titan or others that we are going to mention today. We have to put this knowledge into the market. It has to reach consumers.
Right.
So that's the way ahead.
Do you think, though, I mean, obviously here we've got a very kind of engaged crowd of people, and I guess the people who are watching online also engaged with that, but does your research show, or do the meetings that you have indicate that the general public is particularly concerned about traceability, transparency, for example?
Yes, sure. The public it's linked with what Koen said before. It's a matter of trust. Right. The more you can demonstrate that the food chain, the value chain, is transparent and that you have the tools to really check the traceability, and then the competent authorities have the tools to enforce that, the more consumers, the more we engage with consumers in a positive way.
Koen, what are the issues that you encounter along the way? The system you were describing earlier, and you've got these monthly reports, etc. What are the issues, the problem areas that you counter when you're trying to get to the bottom of cases?
I think it's these monthly reports are key in our fight against fraud. Just to explain, within the EU, we have the EU Agri-Food Network. So it's connecting all the member states, and when there is a case of fraud, this information is in this network, which is confidential. Commission is, let's say, managing this. So the Commission has an overall view on this. So it means that if trade, let's say, if frauds in any direction are noticed by certain member states, the Commission, with all the background, can supplement this information. So in order that then the member states can do further investigation in so. Now this report, it's of course a compilation of all this information which is gathered, and now we are every month we publish this report. This report, one of the things is, of course, to monitoring the market. And this report can also identify, let's say, through emerging threats. For example, you can see, for example, we see quite a lot of issues relating to food supplements, for example. Another issue what these reports are also used for is for private companies to use these reports, the information in it, for their quality assessments. Because we've seen, of course, and this is more and more, and we know that's already done, it's perhaps we will still continue to promote, is that food business operators can see what is happening in this report, and then perhaps ring a bell saying, oh, we have to perhaps do additional testing, because some of the products may end up in our production line. So I think this is the second. Third one is that these reports are also very useful for competent authorities, because resources are scarce. It's important that they can reorient their controls to the task what they have to do. So this report can guide also the member states on this, so that they can really, let's say, use this data. And then finally, I think, and this is also good to remember, is that we, as a Commission, we use this report as well. So we use this, what we call coordinated actions. So these are actions where member states are involved. We do, in a specific area, we do tests for a certain risk, certain fraud. And then this, let's say, based on the outcome, we can take action. And very recent, we had the issue about honey. And I think you mentioned honey, which comes later on, that there was fraud in honey. What we did was the following, let's say, based on this coordinated action, we developed, there was legislation prepared where all the third countries exporting to the EU, all the establishment producing honey should be approved. So it means that the competent authority of that country has to look at it in order to reduce, let's say, this impact on trade. So these reports really help us to ensure that we have genuine, safe, and trusted food into the EU.
But the EU is very diverse. We've got a lot of different kinds of foods being produced by a lot of different kinds of food producers. How do you manage to kind of bring rules that would apply to people all the way from Finland to Greece, from Portugal to Bulgaria? How do you manage that?
Yes, I can. Okay, it's sometimes a lot of negotiations. But I think I think there's no discussion about food safety. I think if you speak about food safety, I think we have very high standards. We have the highest standards. So if we're discussing it, of course, there is a discussion with the member states. But let's say the experience we have is that if there are any, let's say, risks, we have 27 member states looking in the same direction. We want to limit, and then actions are taken. So there, I don't see. It's even though, and it's good that we have cultural differences, but it's clear that in this way there is quite a harmonized approach on that.
Okay. And Linda, what would you? Koen already talked about emerging threats. What would you consider to be emerging threats in food at the moment?
There can be several emerging threats, but one that I want to mention today is the climate change and the effect of climate change also in food safety. For example, changing conditions in rainfalls, patterns or temperatures. This has an effect on germs or on pests, how they spread. And ultimately, they can also affect our food, or shelf life of food or several other elements. So we have already dedicated some EU funding on this under the Research and Innovation Policy Framework that is called Food 2030, that is managed by my unit, by my amazing team, and also managed by the Research Executive Agency. And 2 innovation actions are really focusing on this effect of climate change and food safety. They are called Ambrosia and My Match, for a total of 8 million euros investment, and they will finish in 2027 and 2028. So let's keep an eye on the results of these 2 projects.
What would you say, are there particular examples related to climate change that you can name there?
Well, in the past I was also working in Santé on pest diseases, on health of plants. And we really were seeing the difference of spreading of certain pests that were limited in certain areas, but then depending on the climate change, they spread. This has
just like
effect.
invasive species, right?
Kind of, exactly. We were mainly dealing with quarantine pests, but this has an effect also on trade. So these effects are spreading. I mean, we have to look at these effects under a trade perspective, under import controls, under food safety. At the end, they also touch the consumers. So it's a big issue.
That's super interesting. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Kun, what are the issues related to climate change that you're facing then in this area?
I think it's when we speak about food safety, of course, it's broader. So it's not only on the food, but also on animals, on the plants. Rosalind already mentioned the plants, but for example, also in the animals, we see certain diseases which are were normally seen more in the south of Europe, but we see them coming up in more north. So there is an impact, and of course this is something that we have to take care of and follow, but we see that there are certain changes occurring. On top of that, of course, is that certain on food safety, on keeping the food, to keep the cold chain. This is also something that we see that in countries where it's now warmer, so it means more attention has to be given to this cold chain.
That's interesting, blimey. And so how do you fix those kinds of problems? I mean, it's awareness, but then somebody needs some training then as well, right? Or is that the national authorities that are taking control of those things? Yeah, and you're raising awareness, and then it's for them to take action?
I think there is, let's say, the different levels. From Commission side, we have, as I mentioned, harmonized legislation. Of course, the member states are those which are implementing this, but we do trainings at EU level. We have a program which we call Better Trade, Safer Food. So it's a program that is running in the member state, but also in outside Europe, where we do training on different aspects. And this is, of course, something on top of the training that also member states are already doing. So it's just in addition to what the training is done. But and of course, we target those where we think it's best value for money, let's say.
All of these things are going on behind the scenes, really. Me as a European consumer, I don't see most of this stuff, do I? I mean, I trust my food, and then that's it. But you're doing all of this work behind.
Make this mistake to take for granted certain things that instead require a lot of efforts, a lot of negotiations, as Kun was saying.
Do you think that you shop differently because of your job, and when you go around a supermarket, you're looking at products and thinking in a different way?
Yes, it has an effect, yes.
Yeah, cool.
When I go shopping, it's perhaps also in my the veterinary public health is that I'm looking to the labels, I'm looking to where it comes from. So I don't look to the food, but mainly on the labels. So it's perhaps a little...
interesting. Yeah. Okay, see, that's interesting. Some pro tips here. There's an awful lot of information online about how to do that, and it is something Euronews has reported about as well. And it's certainly very interesting. In particular, in meat and fish, for example, there's a lot of information that you can see. But what would be one thing, as a final question, one thing that you would like to change, Linda, to ensure everyone in the EU has access to the best quality food?
I would say only one thing, which is big, because for me, we should change the sustainability and resilience of our food systems. We should make them more competitive, so that at the end of the day, the innovation, also biotech innovation, really reaches the consumers. And the healthy choice, the most healthy choice, and the quality choice should also be the most affordable one. Yep. So I'm thinking bigger here. It's complicated, but that is the one thing that I'm focused on.
That's a nice vision. Kun?
I think it's for me, there are, let's say, there are two things. First of all, we are now using AI in our assessment. We have really embraced this new technology, and we are developing what we call TraceMap. We have quite an enormous amount of information in our databases, in the agri-food network, but also in the rapid alert system, in the pet network. So this information is there, but it's sort of underused. So we are now in the piloting this TraceMap, which can allow us to do the traceability. We can use it to see trade patterns, production flows, but also we can use it, for example, in the case of foodborne outbreaks. So we can also trace more. So this is now in the final stage, and we hope to bring it forward to the member states, let's say, to be used by early next year. The second thing, what I think is very important is that, and that is based on the experience, is that in certain member states they have already this what we call a sort of teams, both food and police, working together. And this has quite a lot of advantages because they have both the powers to check the labels, but also somebody can make a sort of a legal action. And this we will promote even more to the member states, so to put it in place, because we see that it really is helpful. And afterwards, of course, if cases are detected, then they come into contact with the justice, and then it takes its way. But I think this is one of the things where we will certainly want to invest. And as I mentioned, also the fact that we want to promote this use of this weekly report, the monthly reports, more by the industry, that really to push, because at the end it's about cooperation. It's about cooperation to have trusted and safe food, and I think this is the final goal of all of us.
And later on in the conversation, today in this event, we're going to be talking about those challenges of traceability and transparency across complex supply chains, as we mentioned earlier with fish. Well, thanks very much to Linda and Koen for that. Let's give them a round of applause. Fascinating conversation. And now it's time to go back over to Davide, who's in the crowd and has found some more food detectives.
Hello again, Jeremy. I'm here with Pekka. He comes from Finland. He's been working with the cereal and dairy supply chain, local supply chain there in Finland. His job is all about being as transparent as possible. Why is transparency so important, Pekka?
Well, the transparency is important also to know the raw materials, and of course, if the product should be locally produced, if it really locally produced.
And why, how are you getting consumers to be informed about everything about the products?
Yes, in this Watson product, we produced labels that are attached to the products, and users can use their own mobile phone and find data from there.
And we'll see a demonstration of Pekka's and his team development later on. Now we present you Ines, who's been working with the honey pilot project. I was amazed to get to know how easy it is to fake honey. Is it?
Yes, hello, it is. There is a fraudulent practice that there is sugar syrup added to the honey, and this has been reported happening a high percentage in the EU. So actually it's very difficult to detect, so that's why we need to work on robust technologies to detect it.
And what are you doing actually to prevent fraud in the sector?
So we are working with different digital tools that allow us to detect rapidly these adulterations in honey. And those are how we work. And
we'll see actually how they do it later during the demonstration. Now we introduce Pedro. Hello, Pedro.
Hello. Hello.
Pedro, he is an expert in robotics and computer vision. Actually, did you expect, Pedro, at some point in your life that you would work with the traditional craft of wine making in Portugal?
10, 15 years ago, I would say no. Fortunately, since then, we had the opportunity to work very closely with farmers and producers to develop technologies like sensors, robotics, artificial intelligence, computer vision, and bring that into the sector.
And why is it so important to have these technologies within the wine sector?
All these technologies and others intend to gather as much information as possible to achieve traceability and provide information for different entities. The farmers, certification entities, food authorities, and that way ensure transparency and traceability of the products.
And actually, we'll see what development he came out with his team and with his sécateur and connected baskets later on during the demonstration. Now the floor is back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Davide. Now, it's not all about Watson. There are other projects out there, as Linda mentioned in the previous panel, and we decided to invite a few of them here to come and tell us about what they're doing, because Watson is part of the EU's cluster for food traceability and trust, and so we selected a few of the different projects. We would like them to come and tell us a little bit more about what they're doing. So let me welcome Isabel Wilks, who's the coordinator of the Titan project, Carlos Mazora, the coordinator of the C2C project, Kostas Humas, who's the coordinator of the Alliance project, and Lotte Hellis from the Q's project. Thanks very much for being here with us live on Euronews from Brussels. Lotte, I'm going to come to you with the first question, because you're actually studying consumer attitudes to traceability, transparency, sustainability. Do consumers really care about that stuff?
Short answer, yes. But the long answer is a lot more complex and nuanced.
Go on, you can do the long answer.
I can do the long answer, great. So indeed, a big part of the Q's project is trying to investigate the drivers of consumer choices, the barriers, and we also have, we recently had focus group discussions with consumers, so we asked them themselves, is this important to you? And sustainability, traceability is something that's important to them. They care about it. They're tired of misinformation. They're tired of greenwashing. They want more transparency, but it is only one of the things that drives their choices. So, for instance, they also care about taste. They care about price. They care about convenience. Yeah. So when they're actually making these decisions, there are so many different things at play, and sustainability is only one part of it. And we know in general that there's often this attitude-behavior gap. So for instance, consumers, they care about sustainability. They have the positive attitudes, but it doesn't translate to their actual behavior. And that is because of these barriers like price, affordability, taste.
I think we're all guilty of that one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's, at the end of the day, you might make a decision based on price. You're not necessarily sure it's the best product, but that's the one you buy. Let me come over to you, Isabel, because part of your project, which is huge, it is called the Titan project, it's correct. But one of the things you're looking at is bringing in different kinds of information. We've already got these kind of Nutri scores, which my children are particularly attached to, but you're bringing in other things as well. Tell us about it.
Yeah, indeed. The Titan project is indeed about guiding consumers making informed decisions. And one of them is developing a score where we take knowledge from Nutri-Score, but we actually made a concept where we combine and inform people about what is the health impact, potential health impact and potential environmental impact. And it looks actually like this. So this concept was designed in the UK with the support of the UK Research and Innovation, and thanks to the support of the European Commission, we could actually test in Titan, do people change their choices because of it? So it was an amazing experience.
Can you talk us through it again? So I've got my green, my orange, and my red.
Yes, this is only a few options. There are, of course, more options on it. And you see at the bottom the impact on nutrition. And obviously, green means better impact. And the top one is the impact on environment. And of course, what if one is green and the other one is red? What do we do? So that's why we have the intermediate score as well to guide people. Yeah, okay. And it actually works. Because
so I've got my environmental score and my nutrition score, and I put them together. And so if I've got a yellow and an orange, what would you say? Would you buy it or not?
Well, I do also look at Nutri-Score. I admit, yes. So I would try to find another alternative score option. But of course, we don't eat one product alone. It's a combination. And I would always say is keep a variety, everything with moderation. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. It's just in moderation. That's a really important message as well.
Yeah,
yes.
Awareness, for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Carlos, you're using blockchain technology, which we're going to hear a lot about today, and you're using it to try to boost trust and social acceptance in sustainably farmed and fished seafood. Is there really a problem with trust in that sector?
I wouldn't say so, Jeremy. We are in a big market. We are one of the most regulated, if not the most regulated markets in the world. We have a lot of norms and we follow a lot of rules. However, we are still importing most of our seafood into Europe.
Yeah.
And that creates certain situations. There's still some fraud. There's still some fraud in the actual fish species that we are advertising in our fishmongers, for instance.
Yeah.
And we need a traceability for that. I wouldn't call that a lack of trust. However, there are gaps, and there are gaps in the labeling, in the information that the consumer receives. We can still see at the end of the market absent labeling, for instance, just saying
or imprecise labeling.
Imprecise or absent.
Yeah.
Basically.
How does blockchain come into this?
Well, okay, blockchain is a technology, like any other technology. You can use it for good or for bad, but it's just it's neutral. What blockchain gives you is the opportunity of writing something on the wall and stand by it. So it gives you congruence. It forces you to be congruent. It doesn't bring you truth, but it gives you traceability of your statements. Okay. And that has two ways. On the one hand, it can help the consumer to be informed and make informed decisions about where the seafood comes from, how it's been raised, how it's been captured, what country is it coming from, how near to the consumer the production is. So the proximity is also important, sustainability. And from the point of view of the producer and the whole value chain, it gives you a chance to send your message over to that consumer.
Yeah.
So if you have particular qualities about your product that you want to communicate and transfer and make the consumer aware of it, you have a better chance of achieving that. That's why in C2C we are working on traceability. We are using blockchain as the backbone of the technology, but not what you need to know to use it.
Yeah.
It just works for you. But also it's our stress is on sustainability, on making sustainable products, be able to transfer the message down through the value chain to the consumer.
Let's talk a bit more about blockchain with Kostas, because he's bringing together the improbable worlds of blockchain with Greek feta cheese production, and I never imagined those two worlds would come together. How do you do that? How important and useful is blockchain in trying to create a very transparent and traceable feta cheese production?
Yes, first I'm Greek and I'm proud that we use technologies at the end to promote a traditional Greek product. Blockchain, let's first say, that is distributed data storage. This is how we use it in Alliance. And to make it more clear, it enables multiple synchronized copies of information that they have multiple owners. And this is, to make it more clear, it's a counterexample of the typical banking system, for example, where there is one entity owning the data.
But you're bringing this to cheese. You're bringing this to farmers with milk.
Yes, and in this case, we don't have a stakeholder that has full power over all others or enjoys the trust of all others. So in this case, we have multiple partners. Each of them has its own copy of the data. And at the end, they do transactions, records. They have to be somehow recorded in this blockchain, data storage. And these records are in these copies, as I said before. And when we have to add a new record, a new transaction, this has to be confirmed by the majority of the consortium.
Yeah.
This is one policy, let's say. We will also configure this
to boost the trust, basically.
Yes, to build the trust between the partners.
Well, I don't know whether you've done any studies into whether consumers understand that blockchain can boost trust or not, but what do you think about this when you're hearing these things?
think it's really necessary and relevant. But indeed, I am thinking about the consumer at the moment. And yeah, I think for them, indeed, the question is whether they understand everything. I think it's really important to have the transparency. I'm also thinking about the cost that it may mean for consumers, because one of the questions may be, okay, who's going to flood that bill of having these technologies to increase transparency? And I think it's really important that the cost doesn't end up being paid by the consumer. I think it's really important to have it still affordable, to make sure that we don't create that extra barrier. But indeed, I think that having this transparency, of course, is really important.
Isabel, your project is also bringing in lots of different kinds of technologies. You've got QR codes, you're using AI, mass spectrometers, chromatography, different QR codes. You've got chatbots, all kinds of stuff. How's that working? Talk us through some of the difficulties that you're facing.
Yeah, it is indeed a huge project with 23 pilots, all different, and they're all about being demand-driven, cost-effective, increasing transparency. It's actually rather going well, but we do see some hurdles, and the interoperability between the tools is, of course, still an issue. We're on the way to it. Mainly, lack of harmonization and standardization in the data collection would really help, and also a common taxonomy would really foster this interoperability, and it will be a huge step forward.
There must be also questions of competition as well, and you've got different people along the supply chain, some of whom may not like each other, or perhaps they don't trust each other. They don't want to share information as well. How do you overcome those kinds of issues?
Yeah, that's indeed still there's reluctance to share data, indeed to protect this competitiveness. And it's like we say, it's a buzzword, but it's really important in the economy. So how to overcome it? There will be some, maybe also the policy will guide this. But before setting policy actions, we need also a clear definition of what does it mean to be transparent, and that everybody interprets it in the right way.
Carlos, can I get your thoughts on that and getting everybody along the supply chain on board with this?
Of course, there's an aspect of regulation and compliance, but there's also a business opportunity. The people who are involved in the seafood value chain, they want to be able to prove the product, trace the relationships, trace their suppliers, comply with policy, of course, but we have to make the value chain aware that this is a business opportunity. Otherwise, there's not going to be uptake of
but you're dealing
technology.
with a sector like, I mean, many of these are quite traditional fishing. In Spain, you've got a big industrial operators, but also small artisanal fishers, small aquaculture operators.
It's a very, very diverse market, very, very diverse in terms of producers. Fisheries and aquaculture are probably two completely different worlds.
But when you come to them and say, yeah, we've got this kind of blockchain solution, but they must give you a funny look, to be honest, don't they?
Not really.
No,
not
they
necessarily.
Like it.
No, we have several demonstrators involved in the project who are farmers, and really aquaculture is already in the know of traceability of process, traceability of product, traceability of enzymes, and what goes in and what comes out.
Yeah.
Because they need it. They need it to prove their process, to prove the efficiency of the process in terms of business.
Yeah, but sure they're doing that, but are they keeping handwritten records or things on paper? No.
There used to be that,
right.
But more and more that's being digitalized. Of course, there are differences between operators. There are big operators or there are small operators that are highly technified, but there are also small operators that are more traditional. But the nature of the business takes them towards digitalization and standardization. The world of the fisheries is a bit different, especially the traditional fisheries, which is going to be involved in and interested in the new regulations coming up from the Commission. And that is going to be a challenge. But again, we have to present the opportunity to these small fisheries to differentiate themselves from big fisheries.
That it's a kind of a marketing communication tool, possibly, for them as well. Kostas, how much conflict and resistance and problems are you facing to do with the ownership of information along the supply chain as well?
Yeah. There are many issues that have to be resolved in order to apply blockchain at the end. One issue could be that you have to choose which partners, which stakeholders will have their own copy, let's say, of the distributed data storage, which are the ones that they need it because of their interests. Also, who have the resources to support this, to have this own copy. Another issue could be also what kind of information you upload to blockchain, since it's a time-demanding process. Usually, there is also a parallel typical database, let's say, we call it off-chain. So which data will be uploaded to the on-chain, that is called the blockchain, and which will be to the off-chain. Another issue could be many.
The question, who owns the servers? Like, where are they installed? Who's paying for it?
We have also the heart of a blockchain, that is the distributed, the ordering service. Again, it's distributed, and you have to decide where to share these resources to train the users.
Sure, I'm thinking about what Lotte said about, at the end of the day, this sounds expensive. Who's going to pay for it? In some of your research, have you looked at prices and particularly whether consumers are prepared to pay a few cents more or whatever for particular levels of quality transparency or whatever, or do they just expect it, given we're in Europe?
It is something that we're looking into actually at the moment. So indeed, for instance, we have experiments where we simulate choices that consumers make, and we see, okay, what if something is more sustainable or there's more transparency, but the price also increases? Are they actually, are they motivated to pay extra? And our findings generally indicate that it's not necessarily the case because price is something that's really important for them, and affordability is really important. I think we also need to recognize that a lot of consumers are also in a bit of a vulnerable position. This is also something that we tend to focus on a lot in queues. There's a lot of, let's say, elderly consumers, but also, some consumers where affordability is just really important, and especially for those consumers, the extra cost of these things is really detrimental. Yeah.
I remember you telling me that you're going to be taking people and part of the project in Portugal, where you're going to be taking people to the market. Can you quickly tell us about that, because it's really nice?
Yes, exactly. So indeed, one of the partners is a consortium of food banks in Portugal, in Lisbon. And indeed, so they work with a lot of charities. And one of the things that we're doing is taking these the families that are part of the charities to visit farmers markets, have cooking classes with them, give them cookbooks with sustainable recipes, and try to make them more knowledgeable about sustainability, but also make it easier for them to cook sustainable dishes, make sustainable choices. And it's something that we really look forward to. That's upcoming in the next year of the project.
That's fascinating. I mean, ultimately, just to kind of round things up, we're asking for a big change. We're asking changes by the producers, people along the supply chain, and consumers at the end of the day. What are your thoughts on that?
It is indeed. We already mentioned some hurdles like price and then the standardization of data and so on. And we are all in these projects super excited about tools and the technology, but we can't forget that it begins and ends really with the people using those tools and getting the people who need to use them, like the small farmers or the fisheries. It's a big change, so we need to really guide them and keep the eye on the prize. Basically, it's keeping the trust of the consumers, which means that they will become more loyal, and in the end, there will be an economical benefit for everybody, actually. So it was that we really need to also take them by the hand and guide them and every actor.
What would you say is the key to trying to make that happen, to try and get that connection with people?
Good examples, testing it, it's a big change in trust as well for the actors. Step by step, I think I really believe in it. So that's a good start. And
Carlos, final thoughts from you as well on that, connecting with people in your supply chains and trying to get them to engage with this. What are the arguments you use?
I think there's two levels to that. There's one thing on, compliance, yes, okay, but Do we get more technology so we can do business better and connect with our supply chains better, with our partners better? Connections, people connections at the end of the day. On the other hand, are we all only doing this to consume more seafood, or are we doing this to do it better? Are we doing this to take care of our seafood resources, to take care of our seas, to definitely to be let's say be European about it? Okay.
But and we've talked a lot already about competitiveness. Is that an argument that works for those people as well? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, they're motivated by prices as well, just in the same way as consumers.
I think so. I think it has to be there. It has to be, that motivation has to be there from the point of view of the small producer or the big retailer. There has to be a motivation of gaining trust from the consumer, gaining trust of each step of the value chain, so that we can make better business, but also to take better care of our customers.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to wrap things up for that conversation now. It's utterly fascinating. Please have a look at their project websites and check out what they're doing, because there's a lot of different projects on food funded by the European Union which are happening now. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you. Okay, now it's time for demonstrations. Dimitros is going to join me back on stage. We're going to talk about the Watson solutions, as we call them. What do they actually look like? How, when you hold them in your hands, how are you doing at the moment? How excited are you about some of these technologies?
Event, I really love it. I really love it. I hope our guests love it too. We are going to run through, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to go for it. Now we're going to get started. So would you, in fact, like to take over and start introducing our first demonstration?
Yes. We're going to run through our devices, our technologies, what we have developed in Watson. And, in Watson we had 6 pilots. We are completing the project very soon. I would like now to welcome Donato from Indrae. With his device, you are going to see devices, technologies as well, besides presentations of our solutions. Donato,
he's coming in. He's making his way past the bar. It's a crowded place, but he's on his way. Here he is, straight from a field in France.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Just a quick word. In fact, Donato and I normally speak French to each other, but we're going to try in English now. So, Donato, tell me about this machine.
So, we thought we proposed this machine because it's easy to use, it's cheap, it can be done on many samples, and it did not damage the meat.
And just to those who haven't seen the episode about meat, I'll just explain how it works. You've basically got this sensor, the backpack. You literally can wear this in the abattoir, in the butcher's shop, etc. And how would you test something then?
The instrument has a light source that sends energy through the optical probe. So when the end of the optical fiber touches the meat, some of the energy is absorbed by the product, and the instrument can quantify the absorbed energy. So this absorbed energy depends on chemical composition of the meat, and the chemical composition of the meat is closely related with animal feeding.
That's the key. That's the key. This is the interesting thing. This machine can tell you whether the steak that you're about to sell, in fact, you wouldn't do it walking around a supermarket, but in an abattoir or in a butcher's, for example, the steak that they might have bought, which claims to be grass-fed, whether it's grass-fed or not, and they can do so with this device. Is there a lot of fraud in this area?
Okay, to my knowledge, it is not known if fraud is significant or not. I have not found information on this matter.
But with your Ghostbuster-style machine, he's going to find out. What do you think, Dimitros, when you saw this?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a pretty interesting concept and device, I would say.
The fact it's portable, what do you think that adds to the whole thing?
What we need nowadays. We need portable and flexible devices that can be applied directly on site.
Yeah, absolutely.
On-site or on-spot authentication tests, I would say. This will facilitate some of the analysis in the near future.
What's next for you with this machine?
The machine would be applied in the industry, in the meat industry.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Donato, for coming past with this amazing-looking machine. It's been really fun. Thank you. Let's carry on with more from the meat as well.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donato. Thank you so much. Thanks, Donato, again, for being here with us. The next pilot demonstration will be from our colleague Dagmar from MRI from Germany. She develops technology, more analytical tools, and she claims that these tools are highly accurate. Welcome on stage.
Hi. Let's just quickly tell us, for somebody who's not watched the episode, what is it you guys are doing?
Yeah, now he's really asking me a difficult to answer question in one sentence, because first of all, we are also involved in several use cases, so it's not just one method we are developing. We are developing different methods on different levels of sophistication and also precision. And so we should just take it one by one, right?
Okay. Well, I know that we saw that there were systems for meat test and that would be used in court cases. Tell us about that.
Also in principle, all the methods we develop are used on meat. And one specifically is developed on we are aiming for such a high precision that it can go into court on a court level. And this would be proof. We are working on minced beef products here, and which is just simple minced beef, or it could be also a burger or corned beef, which is just higher levels of processing. And we all know this, where minced beef meat is the most expensive one. So there could be some interest in adding cheaper components which you do not easily recognize. And that could be from another species, or it could come from the same species. And if it comes from the same species, you cannot apply DNA techniques. Then you have to go to the protein. And here we are developing an LC-MS method where we can really identify very, very small changes in the proteome of the sample. So we are actually aiming for coming down to 1% added.
So to help me to understand, you're talking about somebody adding in 1% maybe of something they should not into a burger, and your ability to detect that.
Yes, so it could be a heart muscle or whatever is suitable and cheaper.
Or organ meat, I think, is the technical term that you like.
Yes, organ meat, but there are several organs, so you could have a lung or whatever, heart.
And let's talk about the chicken as well, because that was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, chicken meat is another case which we have. It's also, here we have fresh chicken breast muscle, or also turkey breast muscle, takes up very easily water. So it's binding water very well. And this has been known for a long time. And normally we can also detect this by just analyzing the water content and the protein content, and then look at a ratio of it, which should be in the ballpark of the biological ratio. So the fraudsters, the bad guys, started to think about it, and I say, okay, so I still want to add the water, but how can I mask it up? So I take something, a nitrogen source, which is usually used in order to analyze proteins, and so I just take a cheap amino acid, hydrolyzed protein, and add this in the right ratio to the water, and then I can still inject it. And for quite a while, it doesn't, you won't notice this in the normal control. So we are now developing a method which can prove, not we, it's Andreas from the University of Bayreuth, and together with us. So he's developing a method that he can actually visualize with MALDI imaging, chemical imaging, those amino acids and the distribution of those in the fresh meat.
It's interesting, isn't it? When you tell us about the images, because we were looking at some of those yesterday.
I mean, one of the major objectives of our project was both to develop digital tools and analytical to improve or enhance analytical tools as well. Therefore, in this particular case, in meat, the analytical tools as reference methods are very important. Also in the future to validate future technologies, I would say. And the images also were pretty accurate.
Extraordinary, because you're able to look at images of a chicken breast, and we might buy something like that and think it looks great, not been messed around with at all, and in fact what's happened is somebody's injected this liquid into it in order to get a higher price. Is that actually quite common? Is it happening a lot?
We don't know. This is always hard to say. You first have to have the methods in order to prove this. But there has been the suspicion. What I can say is that I personally experienced in one EU country that there was a television show which was accusing the industry of doing this in a big style. And the next day after this television show, when you went to the supermarket, on all these chicken packages was standing as a fresh chicken injected with 12% brine. so that was very fast. The consumer were not sad about it in this moment. They were buying the chicken as usual, and they said chicken can be dry anyway, so it's quite good that they have some brine injected.
But they're paying a higher price than they should, really. They're being swindled.
They just didn't change the price. The consumer had nothing against it. In the next step then, the industry said, so why would I bother to inject this additional protein? It also costs money, also cheaper. So then it was just injected with water. So they were saying it's injected with water. And then that became less popular. So then all of a sudden you got a new segment of samples which had no injection at all, and the circle is closed. So because you don't know if it was injected or not.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, good luck with your research, which is evolving. The meat project is fascinating. It's really, really interesting. Thank you very much, Dagmar.
Thank you, Dagmar.
Let's move on.
Yes, and now, we have already heard two examples, what we have done in Watson for authenticity. As said, is a holistic framework for both authenticity and traceability. I would like now to we are moving away from authenticity to traceability. I would like now to welcome the team from Finland. It's Hanna-Leena from VTT, and also Pekka from the company Upcode, to highlight also cross-collaboration between university and a company here specialized in printing. And they will they will showcase also their technology for full traceability of cheese and beer.
Absolutely, yeah. You've come along with samples. You have some beer, we have some cheese. Just tell us the headline, tell us about your QR codes and the goal that you had.
Yes, thank you. This is a full bottle, not empty yet. Yeah. We have attached each bottle and each piece of cheese a unique QR code, and it leads by using the application we have developed in this Watson project. It leads to information we like to have everybody who is not registered yet. And then the other levels, for example, authorities, they can have a separate data, what they let them to see.
Can you just tell us, Hanna-Leena, about the consumer experience? What are you hoping people will do?
Well, the feedback that we have been getting is that increases trust to the food chain, and because normally in the normal labeling there's a limited space for information, but behind this smart tag data matrix code you can put additional information. You can see whole story journey of the product, starting from the raw materials, ingredients, and different processing steps and manufacturing, and I think it's really important to show how much work there is in this product, And so it's a way also for the producers to show and tell about the work they have done. And it's very important for the consumers to trust.
How mature is the technology, Hanna-Lena, you mean, for future integration or adoption by the industry? How mature is the technology that you have developed?
Yeah, well, this is based on printed technology, so it's rather cheap. Of course, the information that you collect and gather that one, that it's also taking resources, but otherwise, this is only a couple of cents when you need to do the.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. So quickly show me on your phone, if you have it with you. If you scan one of these QR codes, you get a bunch of information that comes up that tells you about things like, I don't know, the field where the crops were grown that turned into this beer. Tell us what have you got there, and show it towards the camera over there.
Yes, sure. Surely, and it tells in that language we are using the phone. It can change the languages so the customers can understand it. There are, for example, there are how the beer should taste, or there is something you have to or should taste in your mouth when you are having the sip of beer, for example, beer. Yeah, and then there is a raw material information, ingredients, product processes. They can be videos. Or something what the producer want to show us, and then there is also production sensor values. We can have the tank where we are producing the products. We can have this what temperature has been, and so the consumer can be reassured that the product is baked as it should be.
It's interesting, yeah. You can kind of see the cows that made the milk that went into your cheese. And you're also feeding back from the consumers to the producers. Tell me about that, Hanna-Lena.
Yeah, this is like a two-way communication channel. The consumer can be directly giving feedback for the producer. And in case, for example, if there's a need for recall, the producer can update the information. And when the consumer is reading the code, she can find information that don't eat, take it back to the shop.
Yeah, so it's a flow of information between the two. We've got some images rolling on the background there, and we had the chance to visit a farm and to see that, and it's great to be able to see that whole supply chain there.
Every single detail, I would say, along the supply chain.
Yeah, that's the cool thing, isn't it? I mean, information you never thought you'd ever get, like exactly the day that barley was harvested that turned into the beer.
Exactly. This will enhance transparency as well, and also trust from consumers.
Yeah, the transparency is just extraordinary. Do you think that this is something that is going to work well in Finland, but do you think you can apply it in other countries?
Yes. Yes, of course. Finland is not separate, even it's far away from here. It's doing whole world. I'm sure.
Yeah, and do you have plans to expand this now, test it elsewhere?
Well, perhaps we start from the Nordic countries and then go to the Baltic and within this project, there's also possibility to do cooperation.
Yeah, and spread that.
When we evaluate the whole framework of Watson, we're going to provide recommendation for replicates, I would say, in other countries as well, and probably food products.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, thank you very much for coming along, and we look forward to the tasting as well later on, and everybody's going to be scanning, testing the cheese. Thank you. Let's move on.
Thank you, Dave. Let's switch over now to another product of Watson, another value chain. I would like to welcome here on stage Pedro from Inesc Tech, the University of Porto. He's going to demonstrate his connected devices. He aims full traceability from single vine to single bottle. Is that true? We are going to taste the wine later on you have brought. Thank you so much. In collaboration with a company from Portugal. So great.
So great, yeah. Tell us a bit about these things in your hands.
So these are completely normal secateurs and buckets used during the harvesting. These were actually used last September by Sograp during the harvesting process. And what we did was sensorize the secateurs to detect cuts and the bucket to detect weight and weight differences, working together so that we can connect the cuts and the grapes that are harvested to the weight. Together with the tracking of the baskets and transportation units, we can track the grapes that make up a wine, not just to the vineyard, but to the parcel and the plant itself.
That is an extraordinary level of detail. Why would you want to know that level of detail?
we want to collect as much information as possible from the value chain, starting at the origin, from the grapes, the growth, to the harvesting, to the winemaking process, so that we can provide as much data as possible, and the different entities, either for farmers, the winemakers, the certification entities, the food safety authorities, can make more informed decisions and have more efficient processes.
It's an awful lot of data. How are you managing to handle all of that data?
So for that, we count with Watson and a lot of partners that did a lot of back-end technology, including collecting data from the IoT sensor devices, assuring interoperability of different formats, different technologies into a common ontology, storing in blockchain to assure that it's trustworthy, transparent, and then also tools to have a view over that information, make it more user-friendly and according to the intentions and desires of the different players involved.
Who would go on?
I would say, a complete Watson solution involving many different digital technologies and components as well from our framework. It's a unique case.
Just for me, I'm curious, how does it actually work a bit? Can you explain a bit more with the secateurs? Take them out and show us.
Well,
Sorry.
The secateurs have this sensor which detect the cuts. So they are interconnected with the bucket as well as a mobile device for transmission of the information. So as soon as the worker simply cuts, it automatically transmits the data. In this completely normal bucket, we added a sensor in the bases to detect the weights. So we know when the cut was made, connected with the weight increase. We also measure the overall weight of the bucket. We can detect when the bucket tilts to pour the grapes into the basket. So we can then correlate all this weight with the basket, which can be sensorized with something very flexible like this. So it also tracks the basket, environmental conditions, and all of this working together gives us all this information.
It's an extraordinary amount of information, isn't it?
Extraordinary, and as we said at the beginning, from full transparency from the single vine to single bottle. Is that true?
Well, in the pilot, we just went to the wine-making facility because then producers have their own mechanisms for traceability inside, which we can integrate also into Watson.
And Pedro, another comment. You work a lot with Vineyard. Can we really replicate this technology on other similar, I would say, orchards, probably apple trees?
Yes, so we try to use normal equipment, not to disturb negatively the current process, but to enhance them. So it's cost-effective, accessible, to have a greater penetration. But there are other scenarios, for instance, I would say with olive oil, with connection, not the harvesting, which is different, but the part of the transportation, the tracking, monitoring of the conditions, where all this technology can also be applied.
It's interesting. And yeah, this is the real deal. These are actual objects you can use out in the field. And if you watch the episode of The Food Detectives that we filmed in Portugal, you can see them in action with real grape harvesters, people doing the real job, snipping away, and it's totally robust, which is great. It's not lab technology. This is in the field, right?
This is exactly what I said at the very beginning also, is on-site analysis. Not for authenticity in this particular case, but traceability, full traceability.
Absolutely.
Pretty interesting.
Thank you very much, Pedro.
Now we're going to move to another project pilot. We are focusing now on technologies, on DNA-based sensors in the olive oil sector. We have here together with us, I would like to welcome on stage Stelios, the founder of Biocos, a company specialized on biomarkers food. And we're going to test also different olive oil samples, I think, later on, all of us that we are present
for
here.
For those who are watching online, sorry about that, but we are in fact going to go and taste some extremely nice olive oil later on. Tell us, you've got something in your hand, so tell me about that first.
Well, isolates the DNA on site out of the lab. So this allowed Watson to deliver the world's first DNA-tested olive oil at the olive oil facility in 2 hours, which is a process that normally, in the best case scenario, would have taken 3 days. So,
What does that mean for Watson? Because this was interesting. For our TV show, it was the first ever time he'd done that.
Absolutely. It's the first. We have demonstrated already in the episodes as well. It's a unique outcome of the project, I would say. And it's another on-site technology to ensure food authenticity in this particular case. It's a unique outcome as well.
But people might be thinking, why would you want to DNA test olive oil?
Well, a product with a genetic identity, you cannot modify, so you know that it is the integrity is safeguarded. So let's imagine that a company receives a batch of olive oil, so they can test it in 2 hours. It's good to go. That good to go translates also that the consumer will have a higher, not necessarily higher quality, but let's say will have a product that the integrity is ensured. And this returns in value.
Because they can say, okay, we know this olive oil definitely came from these trees in this place. That sounds like it's definitely very helpful for the producers as well, right?
Yes. Technologies, sometimes we think technologies as only as a tool of control, but technologies is also a mean of creating products with a higher transparency, which translates to value, and this translates to a positive impact to the company and to the growers. And we're talking about the olive trees, which is a part of our culture and an amazing product.
What are the big problems? Sorry.
What's really unique here is that we have minimized the time for analysis to between 2 and 4 hours instead of days in other analytical labs. We can carry out these tests exactly on site. This is pretty unique as well.
Yeah, because that was the case in the past. You could do a DNA test, but it took a very long time, and you couldn't do it in the field.
Yes.
What have been the big challenges that you've faced with this?
Well, it's a huge challenge. The quality of DNA. The quality of DNA it has been always a bottleneck in DNA technologies, in olive oil, edible oils, and that's why they were always left apart. And it has been always a challenge. Now, this challenge has been, let's say, one step forward to improve it, and to have a good DNA test. You need also a good genetic information to read the DNA.
Yeah.
So, let's say in Watson, we connected the nodes: extract, process, analyze.
And again, it's a very traditional industry. Lots of things are happening, different kinds of speed, should we say, compared to, in a big city or whatever. How are the farmers, the producers, engaging with this? What do they think of it?
This is obviously depends on the maturity, on the producers. The producers that are good and honest will embrace it because they are not afraid, so they will get a competitive advantage. The fraudsters, I don't think they will engage it because they will not be able to pass through. So it's also a tool to make the good ones better,
yeah.
And the others, okay, they can keep their share.
And just for me to know that there's a lot of fraud, right, in this sector.
Quantify the fraud in olive oil is kind of complex, but let's stay on a fact, Jeremy. It's among the top 10 products with higher fraud in Europe. So even if we say that it is not fraud, it's within the top 10.
Yeah.
And we need to create technologies that, even if it is only a matter of reputation, to change it. Because consumers, there has been a study that consumers, that they were exposed to the reputation of fraud, they were prone to, the 10 was to pay less. So
yes.
They lose money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was another flexible device, on-site analysis, portable one. How transferable would be those results to another value chain, Stelio? How can we adapt this technology?
No, it is easy, scalable, of course. It is not just plug and play. You need a minimum investment, some solid research to be sure that the outcomes that the process does not affect the outcomes, because biotechnology needs to be solid. And more we use it, more information, more knowledge we gain. So scalable with minimum investments.
Yeah,
and olive oil is one of the most adulterated products, I would say, together with honey that we are going to hear in a few minutes. And I would be really interested to see if we can really provide some recommendations of this flexible tool and if we can adapt and scale up to other value chains as well. Would be really interesting.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much, Delos. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for coming along.
Now we are moving to another value chain. We will talk about fish. Truls from Sintef has developed together with our technology providers, net company, a DFPP, a digital food product passport. I have a question in the beginning. Do we really need a product passport for fish, Truls?
Yeah, I say that cod and whitefish in general, we're talking about wild caught fish like cod, say, haddock. It can be a fantastic source of protein, and it can also be among the most sustainable, but that requires that the fishery itself is sustainable. And that requires contributions from many different areas. One of the main things it requires is that the authorities are able to control and monitor that the quotas that exist on the fish, they're being complied with. And the consumers can only know that if the fish has a passport, that tells you exactly where the fish come from, which quota it was caught on, but also how it's been transported and stored and treated along the way, all the way to production and then to your table.
Are you saying that at the moment, then, if I buy some fish, we haven't really got all of the information? And I'm thinking, what's new really with what you're trying to do?
I think what's special with the fish pilot in particular is that we're really trying to merge a complex source of information and a data, which is the catch data that the quota requires, with logistics data. All of these different data exist, but in the supply chain, you really only follow the product like one step back and one step forward. That means that the data has only been created to either work for your previous partner or actor and the next one. But we're trying to put this all together into one system where you can follow the fish from the catch all the way to the plate. So this is really what's new, is that this data is collected in one place.
It's a very complex supply chain, the fish supply chain. What were the main challenges you experienced developing this digital product passport?
The data collection is always quite a tough problem. Many of the processes that happen maybe exist on paper or PDFs or Excel files. We want to create a system that does all of this automatically and can scale. Right now we're doing a pilot, which means that we are collecting some of this information manually, putting it together, and then trying to create a standard that the industry can use that will become more automatic once it becomes more mature.
How would it change things for people who are buying a kind of processed fish product? What would they see something different on the packet when they've got this level of information coming through the supply chain?
Maybe not on the packet, but they would have a QR code. They could go into that link that we have been seeing, QR codes and apps and web pages, where we can put a lot more information than the little label that could be on the packet. And there, depending on research being done in the Watson project and also in other projects that we heard from, we want to really figure out how to present all of this information. We can't put all the data in the passport, but we want to create data that makes the consumer able to understand enough about how the fish has been treated.
You know, consumers are definitely aware of illegal, unregulated, undeclared fishing. Yeah. Does this help with that?
I would say so. We're trying to create an environment where more data is being shown. It's more transparency in the supply chain. It doesn't stop fraud directly, but it makes it harder to commit fraud. It makes it more expensive to commit fraud, and hopefully that will also mean that there will be less fraud.
Yeah. Therefore, it's a tool that can both ensure authenticity and traceability, transparency across all along the supply chain, I understand.
Yeah. And Truls, thanks a lot for coming along all the way from Norway to tell us about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now we are moving towards the final pilot presentations. We have saved the sweetest. We need a table to demonstrate, to showcase that. We are talking about honey. one of the most adulterated food products. I would like to welcome here. Come on. I would like to welcome here on board Ines and Miguel from Asingar in Spain. They will showcase a very smart sensor, a camera that is able or capable of detecting fake ingredients, fake sugars in honey samples.
Ines, can you tell us what you're about to do?
Okay, so here what we have is a near-infrared sensor, which is a sensor, an optical sensor, that allows us to see farther than our eyes into samples. So in this case, we're going to work with honey samples that because honey is, as Dimitrios mentioned before, is one of the products that has more adulteration, that is more fraud, because it can be mixed with sugar syrups. So this is what we're going to show.
Okay, we'll go ahead, get started.
We'll go ahead.
Let's see you. So talk us through what Miguel is doing. Miguel, maybe turn around so that otherwise the camera will just see your back.
Okay.
The cameras, we've got one over here, we've got cameras over there, over here, everywhere really. So face that way. Okay, tell us what he's going to be doing.
What Miguel has in hands is that near-infrared sensor, and now he's preparing the sample, so you can see like a slide where we have a holder that we also develop as part of the project, and on the top we will have the sample prepared, the honey, and then what we put is like a cube, because that acts as a mirror, because that's the configuration that works for detecting, for measuring honey and the adulteration.
So where's the honey then?
So the honey is between that white cube and the slide you can see below.
Okay, and so is it analyzing now already?
Not yet. So you can see on the screen, this is the interface that we have developed as part of the Watson project as well. So if, Miguel, you want to go ahead. It's as easy, you will see how easy it is to perform the measurement. So just press start and scan at the bottom.
So we're going to find out whether this is fake or real honey.
Exactly. And the result?
It's fake.
Adulterated. Yeah, exactly.
You came with some fake honey.
Yeah.
Did you know it was fake?
No, it was a surprise actually for me as well.
Interesting. So tell me about how you would apply this then. I mean, how's this going to be used?
So this tool, as you could see, is easy to implement. So it's very easy to use. It's also very cheap. So this will be a great tool for food authorities, so they can go in the field, analyze a higher number of samples instead of taking longer time to get the results that at the moment is, again, weeks, months even, to get all the data.
It's just a couple of seconds with this machine.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and you're from Asturias. Does this only work with Asturian honey at the moment?
So at the moment we've been working from Asturias honey, exactly, with the PGI, from Protected Geographical Indicator Honey Agency. So the plan in the future would be to expand and try to get more samples from Spain and other countries.
Miguel, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so I'm going to come over there. Tell us a little bit. Tell us about how excited you are about this technology.
I am really excited to work with honey, because it is a product that has a higher percentage of fraud here in the European Union, and we are working really hard to have a technology that would make us able to detect fake honey and real honey.
Well, for those who are watching and those who are in the room, we have a tasting of real, extremely high-level quality coming up. But it's super interesting, isn't it, to see this technology?
Absolutely. It's another major outcome of Watson, actually. Portable, handheld device, on-site authentication. We can really, in the near future, ensure authentic. It's not easy. It's not an easy task, but we are certain that in the near future we will be able to provide this technology in action.
Well, there you go. That wasn't a fake test. That was a real test, and we found some fake honey. So thank you very much for coming from Spain to show us that. Wow. Okay, I'm going to invite Davide back up on stage because it's time to wrap things up. It's been a great conversation. There he is. How are you?
Here I am.
We have a table as well here now.
We've got a table.
Where's the wine? Where's the wine?
Coming up. What are your thoughts on these demonstrations?
I think that there's still a lot of job to do, but like seeing these people working for so long in their research, it's been like for me also kind of emotional. Like I got emotional just as like Stelios when I was there in Umbria filming the first extraction of DNA from olive oil, because there's a story behind these research, and you can actually watch all the reports to see what's the story behind.
What's been the kind of standout moment for you making this series?
I think that it was my fear when filming the bees, actually. I was not expecting that. I was kind of expecting that, but I thought that like the white helmet, like protecting me, I didn't think it was really protecting me. I can feel the bees around me, like getting ready to find a place, a hole, and get into me. I was kind of...
What about your experience with olive oil?
With olive oil, actually, with olive oil, it was more about like understanding what's behind these like millennial or like century-old trees.
Beautiful trees.
They are beautiful, but there are so many producers that are now actually cutting them down because the wood is actually more productive than the olives, because they don't actually produce so many olives, so it's better to get them. But it's the history of a place, it's the history of the culture of our places. So I'm looking for DNA tested olive oils in order to save those trees. Like
as you could see on the label, if it is.
Yes, I need to find it.
You're looking. As Watson project coordinator, do you actually shop differently now because you've been the Watson?
First of all, actually, I was really privileged to coordinate this project. It was a unique collaboration. Actually, 47 partners, more than 100 individuals working together over the last 3 years. I need to acknowledge the work of everyone here. You know, we have seen the 6 pilots, but there is a lot of work behind technology, enablers, providers. I mean, we have covered, it was a collaboration across different disciplines, I would say, different disciplines, and across different stakeholders as well. Many universities, research institutes, companies, big, small industries, startups. Was an extraordinary project, actually. It's coming to an end now
really
in February.
Go on.
Jeremy, what was your standout moment?
Well, I think everybody knows that we really enjoyed making the story in Portugal, because we had beautiful weather, lovely location, we had time, we had beautiful light. It was, but overall, I mean, they're lovely people, and also quite a few of them bought us lunch. And if there's nothing a journalist likes more than a free lunch, so I very much appreciate that. We like talking about food, but please do head over to watsonproject.eu to go and have a look at the website, try and understand what they're doing there. Head over to Euronews.com to watch the Food Detectives episodes, all of those, and of course to follow European and world news from Euronews. We're covering it 24 hours a day. And thanks very much for watching, for all of you here in the audience as well. It's been a real pleasure having you here. And we'll see you soon. Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you all.